Now we're starting with the return of Governor Siminalayi Fubara of Rivers State following President Bola Tinubu's lifting of a 6-month emergency rule in the state, reinstating the governor, his deputy, and the entire Rivers State House of Assembly. Well, the emergency rule imposed on March 18 was due to a standoff between Fubara and his political godfather and former governor of the state, Nyesom Wike, and the state legislature. The dispute disrupted budget approvals and left the government in limbo. According to President Tinubu, the measure was necessary to prevent anarchy. Many have criticized the emergency rule, with the issue causing more than 40 legal challenges in courts across Abuja, Port Harcourt, and Yenagoa, Bayelsa State. Well, Tinubu defended the move as a constitutional tool to restore order, even as many in opposition, including former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, argued strongly that the president has no such powers under the Constitution to suspend an elected governor. On Friday, Fubara returned to a large crowd of his supporters. He also had a few kind words for the president and his immediate predecessor and Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike. All right, joining us now to take a look at the entire saga of the emergency rule in Rivers State and the return of Fubara is a former Attorney General of Kogi State, Prince Ben Ikani, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Also joining us in the conversation is Professor of Communications, Base University, Professor Adeniyi. Gentlemen, you are welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Let me start with you, Prince. Finally, Governor Fubara returns. What do you make? I'm sure you listened to his speech. You probably also listened to the speech of the president. What do you make of both speeches?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, viewers. Thank you for inviting me. As a matter of fact, I must correct your introduction. I'm not a senior advocate of Nigeria. I'm a former attorney general, but a senior lawyer for that matter.
Senior lawyer, but not senior advocate.
Yeah, thank you. Well, the issue as to the coming back of Governor Fubara is a good news to Rivers State and to even democracy, lovers, because the essence of the emergency rule, which the president proclaimed, is okay. The president was within the ambit of the Constitution. He has the right to do that, and he did it because if you look at Section 305, which is the basis for state of emergency in Nigeria, and particularly subsection 3C, the word there is when the president sees there's an extraordinary situation, he has to approach it with extraordinary measure. That's the aspect, and that is the operating word there. So when I hear people's comments criticizing Mr. President, if you look at section 305 in total, there are so many checks and balances. Mr. President could not be blamed alone. He has no automatic power there. Whatever he should do at that time is subject to 3 other organs of government, which is the legislature. And that shows if they were all up to their task, they should know when to pull Mr. President back or not, which they didn't do. So one should not automatically be blaming only Mr. President. Mr. President acted within the ambit of the Constitution. Whether or not the extraordinary measure he's supposed to take includes, suspending Mr. Governor and the legislature, is an issue for interpretation.
Good.
Who does interpretation? The judiciary.
Good. I like that you added that, because that makes, I don't know, I shouldn't say my job easier, but that makes for discussion, for more discussion. Before I come back to you about that, and then the issue of the people who should pull him back like a masquerade is pulled back when he's running out of I'll get back to you on that. But yeah, on the speech of the president, Prof, and the speech of Fubara himself, he said one poignant thing when I was listening to him there. He said the cheapest, oh boy, I hope I can remember. He said the cheapest war or the cheapest peace is the costliest peace is better than the cheapest war. That's it. That's the way he put it. I remember right now. So What do you make of both speeches?
Okay, first, before I comment on that, permit me to just seize this opportunity to commiserate with the founder and chancellor of Bayes University, distinguished Senator Yusuf Dati Baba Ahmed, and the patriarch of the Baba Ahmed family, Dr. Hakim Baba Ahmed, on the loss of their brother, Alhaji Mukhtar Baba Ahmed. Now, having said that, may he so rest in peace.
Yeah.
Yeah. And having said that, it is important for us to understand that we largely operate, we're in a democracy, but there's a way in which democracy can operate around technicalities, around rules, around law, around institutions. And institutions, we've been saying it for the obtained time, are the pedestal around which a smooth democratic organization functions, or a smooth democratic environment functions. But the problem we now have with our own democracy is that we have an extreme obfuscation of the process, with politics, and we allow alignment, horse trading, interest, to decline or to reduce the ability, of our rules and regulations, to determine how our democracy functions. And of course, it's been once more exemplified in the case of Rivers State. And yes, I've had the very senior lawyer said the president acted within the ambit of the law, maybe or maybe not. But again, we also know that the optics weren't too right. Legally, he may be right, like the senior lawyer said, but the political atmosphere, the public perception of it was the president acted in support of one party, in an ongoing dispute in Rivers State. And that perception, has not been erased, it has not dissolved, it is still there. And in the wake of the presidential pronouncement, there was, a groundswell of public opinion against it. Analysts were obviously against it. Even lawyers were also kicked against it. Senior lawyers too also kicked against it. Now, but you can see again how emotions can be dynamic. It moves between guilt and innocence, between right and wrong, between joy and sadness. In the early stages, people were sad, but now people are gratified again. Perhaps they have resigned, they are in a state of accompli. It's a fait accompli, as the case could be. And now we're saying, okay, let's make the best of it. And the man has come. Finally, 6 months after, it's not been extended, thankfully. Now let's be celebratory about the return of our governor. And the manner in which the president and the governor is also taking it is not bad. What they are saying is right in philosophy. Even the bitterest of oppositions, we often go into dialogue, diplomacy first before, they bring out their swords, And if the governor or the president is prioritizing peace, glorifying peace, welcome development, no doubt. And we have also made this point that, look, in every political arrangement, in every political process, reconciliation is almost always paramount. But who is winning and losing in the matrix? Perhaps we'll get to that later.
Because that was
the primacy of peace is of utmost important.
Yeah, that's
just so the people of Rivers will not be continually denied of good governance, which cannot be guaranteed, by a contraption in the form of a sole administrator. It's only the one that has been naturally elected, and they can give them the desired wishes, the desired goal, that faces them, as the case could be indeed.
Yeah, well, Prince, just what he said now. That will be my next question. And just to add to that you remember the case in 2013 when the president was advised by his Attorney General, Adoke then, if I'm correct, look, President, you don't have the power to remove, you can declare emergency, but you don't have the power to remove a sitting governor. And this was in Yobe, some other states. And so the governors were there, but a state of emergency was declared. And that was even a worse situation than whatever it was in Rivers. And then again, who are the losers and who are the winners in this entire saga?
Yeah, thank you very much. The situation in 2013 and the present situation which we have come through now are never the same. And I must put it categorically here that the advice of the former Attorney General then to Mr. President is, yes, based on the law, but subjective. because the present situation now, you know, when you are the head of the president of a country, you are sitting at the elevated atmosphere of the entire country. The information at your disposal, how you weigh it, how you get to it, can never be compared, can never be contrasted with the previous ones. What Mr. President must have heard about the situation in River that time and how to nail it properly could not have been available to Mr. President in 2013. And don't forget that River State is our base for our economic growth. It is arguably the only state that can sustain itself whether or not there is federal allocation or not. But the fact is that what they bring to the basket is very, very important to our state. And it's president that has just taken over and has, from their own comment, a bad situation economically, will never allow himself to be drawn into a situation whereby our source of resources will be affected if there is an upheaval in River State.
So who are the winners and who are the losers?
The winner now is democracy. Why do I say that? Because the former Governor Fubara actually attempted to fight something that is a disease to this society, to this democracy. That is godfatherism. That he attempted it, I give him kudos. The only place that did it in Nigeria before was during Ngige. So this brings up, it is now for other people to take it from where he stopped. He has tried, he has won, he has registered himself in the mind of Nigerians.
Did he win?
The issue is arguable. Because whatever it is, the interest of the state, the sovereign state, is very important to him. Okay. But he actually made a comment. And that is, godfatherism, they will never sleep well.
You know, I was discussing this same issue. I hope I bring it up. But let's move on a little bit because we don't have all the time in the world. Handing over power, Iba said this. He said that the health, because of one statement you made, he said that the health of our polity depends not only on who wins or who loses, but on how political actors manage their differences and on the strength of the institutions. Now, Prof, let's look at the phrase managing differences. A case where someone becomes a sort of albatross, what he just raised now, dictating in a democracy how a state should be governed in a democracy. The issue of godfathers and those who play God, how does this impact our politics? It's just what he raised now. Before I go to the second issue.
Yeah, Andy, there's something we also need to quickly underscore. There's no system that is completely homogeneous. Not even our body as humans. You know, there's no homogeneity in our system. There are different systems, different organs working together for the good health of a human being. Now look at that as a unit, as a macrocosm of entities, and look at the society. In a society, you have a multiplicity of entities, all of them, perhaps different. And for that society to thrive, you need some mechanism to make them function well. And of course, come down to the question of democracy, to the question of political party. There are differences, there will always be differences. So we can just take the question of difference as something that is organic, something that is natural, something you cannot do anything about. But what you need to do is management. And how you manage it also is a function of your skills.
So the question of it's
a function of your skills. So what kind of skill do you want to deploy? Then, of course, even your skill, you might get to your wit's end sometimes if you encounter some difficulty. But the wisdom is not to quit, but to keep trying. Yeah, in River State or anywhere else, you might have some individuals that we cannot judge as controversial or difficult to manage or eccentric or egocentric.
I'm particularly talking about the effect and the impact of godfatherism across, not just
I will get there.
The role it plays in our polity, in our democracy. Where somebody plays God and decides on what happens in a society, in a state, even when he or she has left that state.
Well, you want us to be very particular to River State, but it's a phenomenon.
I mean, you can extrapolate it.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's a phenomenon that is general. Even in organizations, you have people that you can regard as your mentor. You call people leader, who you are loyal to on account of the role they have played in your growth in life or in molding you one way or the other. And of course, this is natural. But the problem I was actually trying to point hands to is when it becomes ultra-vires or when somebody is going overboard, then concern will have to be addressed. But how do you address it? I'm not sure the mentee can address it alone, or maybe the godson, for instance. I'm not sure that person can address it alone. It has to be the society or the political party or the organization that they both belong to coming in to do some mediation.
How much harm does it do to
there
our
can be
democracy?
some moderation.
How much harm does it do to our democracy?
Well, democracy is work in progress.
We keep on saying work in progress, like a child.
Yeah, it's work in progress. I don't think
there's
there's any bullet that you can fire that will resolve the problem almost immediately. You
No,
know, it's something
what
that you
I'm
have
saying
to,
is,
as long as you are aware of it, you are conscious of it, and steps are being made. Even the idea of conversing or discussing it, you know, is one step in the right direction.
All right, because
Raising
I
awareness,
have many issues I want to
around
raise
it.
because I
And
can't
of
keep
course,
on.
it's also part of the process.
I can't keep on
addressing
with that
it,
because there are so many issues to raise with that, you
that's
know.
right.
But again, based on that speech too, about 40 cases in court, especially that of 11 PDP governors, challenging the constitutionality of the emergency rule. Fubara talked about not challenging it for peace sake. Some have argued that he should go to court. His tenure should not end in May. It should end in November because of the time that was removed from him. Maybe you take that along with the fact that the role NAS played in this whole saga using voice votes to grant the president's wish as against what the Constitution says.
Yeah, thank you very much. The issue of whether or not there is a winner or loser is part of the question we've asked now. But you see, I totally support the position of Mr. Governor now, that there is no need crying over spilled milk. I could agree. But we have a problem. You know, the Constitution cannot be absolute. Laws are just skeletal. It is the interpretation that gives flesh and blood to laws. That is why I blame the judiciary, which I belong. This is part of my sector too. I agree. The Supreme Court should be onerous enough. We should have activist justices, like we had during the people like Oputa Kaudenshaw. You cannot wait on end. You see, it is my submission that in a case like this, the doctrine of sui generis should be applied. Whatever there is an issue that needs urgent interpretation, the judiciary should not follow the full protocol of process filing. How can a case be in the Supreme Court for before the 6 months, period, and still it is not listed for hearing? It is unheard of. Go to other countries like America. Once there's a serious issue, the Supreme Court summon themselves and they take it immediately within 7 days. That's how it should be. So the fact is that if there is no proper interpretation to this section 305, we will continue in this cycle. Yes, because the president can subjectively take an action, because there's no way in section 305 where it is listed, this is who should be remain, who should not be touched, this and no. So if the president has that discretion, whatever he viewed at that period is what he can do. So the problem to get answer to our situation now is for the judiciary to come alive.
What about what the NAS did?
Yes, the NAS equally, I would say categorically, they abdicated their responsibilities. Because the issue of voice votes doesn't count here. Because if you see their rules and regulations, the essence of vote counting is for it to physically count when it is very, very imperative and very important. How do you count the number of who supported state of emergency from voice votes?
You know what, Prof, you know why we're raising these issues? Yeah. The governor may have said, let peace reign.
Yeah.
You know, and somehow said it's a piece of the graveyard.
Yes.
For the sake of the people of Rivers, let's just go ahead. You know, but then precedents are set. What happens tomorrow? How do we correct anomalies? So what do you make of that, the issues we've just raised?
Yeah, I think it's a very germane question. The first thing to say is actually that it's very tricky. We're not even sure. It's a very fragile, consensus that we have in place. Not just because of the temperament of the parties involved, but also because of the potential of, the thing degenerating on account of how robust rivers can be in terms of their politics and their economy. All these things can once more conflate, and trigger another round of crisis. But maybe beyond just wishing that it will not come up again, The other thing for us to do is for all the stakeholders to be mindful of not subjecting the people of the state to another round of uncertainty like we saw in the last 6 months, realizing that no one else is losing other than the people of the state, and even the leaders themselves are also losing, because now they are the governor is not likely to be given an extra 6 months, to replace the 6 months lost, So if that's going to be the case, then it means that they are losing at many ends. So when you see yourself losing on all scores, what do? Proper rethink, not just at the individual, proper rethink at the collective level, much more than the individual level.
Okay. A little while from now, we will be going on break, but let me raise this issue with you, Prince. Which turn do you expect governance to take with the governor, a PDP member, 27 members of the House, APC, with only 4 on Fubara's side?
Well, in democracy, it is a game of number and persuasion. The governor now should go and show his talent in win over people who are in one position or the other. Let me tell you, no situation is absolute in life. The situation created now with a good governor who is a good administrator, you can even speak with arrangement, talk with devil, and devil will come to your side. So I expect him to put on his thinking cap and try to win them. It is not cast in stone. They are human beings too. They are from constituency too. But they know, you see the way Governor Fubara is being loved by river people now. Any legislature that wouldn't like to be on the side on the other side of the populace should equally dance to the tune of Governor Fubara. And the essence of the whole thing is we should be very constructive in our taking stand in life. That's why I say the status of godfatherism will soon die a natural death, because there is no how. If the situation in Rivers State can start immediately after swearing, taking oath of governor coming to power at that time, if the battle started immediately, all potential godfathers should think twice that people are getting serious. And it's not going to continue like that.
Okay, he has raised an issue I want to bring up, because, yeah, it's good you play these games, you will try to convince the devil. I mean, a writer says, a sweet word breaks a stone, a nice words. But now, this is what an APC chieftain, Eze, he says Nigerians watched and did nothing, allowing the illegalities in Rivers State, that's what he calls it, to happen successfully. And my question is, he has just said that. What could Nigerians and Rivers State people have done?
And that's a very important question too, because I'm actually wondering what the senior politician was expecting Nigerians to do, other than what they did. Nigerians protested through their leaders, who had respected attorneys coming out, to condemn, the declaration. And we also heard the social media was also awash. The media was awash with criticisms, and of course there were even some physical protests. People went on the streets in Rivers, but do not forget that the temperament or the ability of the average Nigerian citizen is also taxed, by lack. They don't have too much energy to continually be on the streets because of their economic situation. Because how will they make ends meet? Some of these people struggle to survive, and for how long are they going to be on the street? So people who are on the other side may also quickly take advantage of it, convince them otherwise, gratify them with some handouts, and they will withdraw. So sometimes I do not want us to blame Nigerians so much, because these people have been browbeaten. They are in parlor situation. There's just so much they can do. The onus is largely on the leaders to be much more responsive, and look at regulations, look at institutional prescriptions, in outlining policies and in implementing same. Not for us to now shift the narrative to the people, as the case could be.
But when the leaders don't seem to be, for example, we talked about NAS. I mean, Prince, the Constitution is very clear. 2/3 can only be obtained by counting. But you had former governors using voice vote in this system. I mean, that was blatant disregard of law. So you're wondering, in fact, somebody said, why does all this leave Nigeria's judiciary and legislature two arms of government that should encourage checks and balances? Buba Galadima, I interviewed him, he says both have been captured by the executive. What do you think?
That is the correct word. So the senior politicians say what Nigeria should have done, they couldn't do anything. For instance, the prof here has talked about weaponization of poverty, which is the issue. The real people to have corrected any situation are the institutions. And the institution has been weakened. The word captured, I may not agree, but some of them, because there is no how, even if you are paying me billion, there is conscience in me that is always active. I will tell you what I'm supposed to tell you. My 35 years in civil service, people who know me will tell you, I don't rock the boat unnecessarily. But if I don't agree with certain policy, I must voice it. And that person who is my boss that time will go home and think about it. He'll come back. Oh, yeah, what you said yesterday is actually this correct. Let us go this way. Because my conscience came up immediately. But if all of us are cowed, that is the institution. For instance, if judiciary has not slept on duty, so many interpretations I would have put the executive in place, because they will look at it. This is a precedent. For instance, we are looking for precedent in this situation. It has been the other during the Adeniyi time. The Supreme Court used technicality, and it's unheard of. The Supreme Court is a policy court that's supposed to interpret the law, not to give room to technicality. People that I know, it is my area, but with due respect, our judiciaries are not living up to expectation.
Yeah, okay, we'll just, I see you're on fire there when that comes up. We'll be going on a little, we'll just take a breather. We'll come back and we'll continue with the discussion. I'm sure you're having fun listening to the two gentlemen, the Prof and the Prince, former Attorney General of Kogi State. They'll still be here when we get back. So we'll just take, we'll come back in a bit and continue with the program. Don't go away. We're glad to have you back. We're still discussing the issue of Rivers State. Just in a bit before we go over to Plateau State, where there have been killings. We'll talk about that in a little while. But I still have the Prof of Communications-Based University, Prof. Adeniyi. He's still here. And the Prince himself, Prince Ben Ikani, former Attorney General of Kogi State. Yeah. Some said that having a sole administrator in Rivers State oversee elections is an aberration. That shouldn't have happened. I don't know your thinking on that and what he achieved within the 6 months he stayed.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have my exception in a situation when there is a state of emergency and you are selecting a sole administration. The presidency would have thought of who could be relevant for this kind of situation. If it was purely a security matter, maybe there's bombing, there's oil, stoppage, which is the area of a naval personnel, former. But this thing is purely a political issue of disagreement between the legislature and the governor and the rest of them. Why don't we go and scout for a retired former governor? We have some of them who have impeccable characters, who know what it is to be in government, and then go and do to settle the situation. Tell me, I have not read from the news since Ebas went to the river. I've never seen him making a move of calling the parties to even listen to them and reconcile them. Nothing. The only thing we had, some people went to UK, and the UK they went to meet a minister, and that is the area where Ebas would have started from. Throughout 6 months, he didn't do any settlement, he didn't reconcile them, he just left at it. The issue of presiding over elections is not within the contemplation of the Constitution for a sole administrator.
All right, so you take the last question. Just to that.
Yeah, I think I agree with him, because if we declare a state of emergency like this and we bring in a retired military personnel, greatest respect to the military, we are just demonstrating that we should be reminded of another party that is a possibility in the governance process, which is a step in which we want to continuously move away from. So there's no point reminding ourselves. We can begin to look inward, to see how well we can harness the experiences we have gained over the years, in our political evolution.
All right, thank you so much. Been discussing with the former Attorney General of Kogi State, Prince Ben Ikani. Thank you for being here. And of course, the Professor of Communications based University, Professor Adeniyi. Thank you, gentlemen, for your insights on this reverse issue.